Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Aligned in Action. I'm your host, Shiri, and today we're diving deep into something I see in almost every ambitious woman that I work with, and I see it in myself as well, right? The overthinking perfectionism loop that keeps you stuck in planning instead of executing. So, do you know that feeling that you have a big goal or project and you spend hours researching, planning, mapping out every detail? You create like the perfect plan in your head, but in reality, nothing happens. Like days pass, weeks pass, months pass, and you're still getting ready to start. You're still trying to figure things out, and you're still waiting for that magical moment when you will feel 100% confident and ready. Does that sound familiar to you? Because it does to me, trust me. So today I'm showing you exactly why this happens to intelligent, ambitious, high achieving women, and more importantly, how to break this cycle for good. By the end of this episode, you will understand the hidden patterns keeping you trapped in overthinking, and you'll have a practical framework to shift from endless planning to aligned execution. I'm going to share my messy action role with you that might sound scary, but it's helped me and so many of my clients break through that perfectionism and finally take consistent action on their biggest goals, whether that's fitness, business, career, personal development, family, relationships, whatever that is. And trust me when I tell you, this is not about forcing yourself to just do it through sheer willpower. I think you know by now that this is not what we do here. This is about rewiring how you operate at the deep identity level. So taking action becomes your default state and not just something that you have to push yourself to do and kind of fight against. So I want to start with a story that the patterns in that story will probably sound familiar to a lot of you. So for months, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, I had been talking about starting a podcast. That was on my mind for months. I knew it would be a really, really powerful way to share my message and connect with my ideal clients. And personally, I love listening to podcasts. I love consuming long form content. So I knew that would be something that I would really enjoy creating as well and would really attract aligned clients that enjoy this type of content. But I kept putting it off. Why? Because I was caught in that perfectionism trap. I convinced myself constantly that I needed professional recording equipment, not just using my laptop or my computer. I thought I needed like a fully mapped out content strategy for like the first 20 episodes. I thought I needed a perfect launch strategy, right? To get it to the top of the charts. I thought I needed like advanced editing skills or maybe someone to hire. I was even like obsessing over what cover I would create for the podcast, which no one really cares except for me, right? But that's what my mind was obsessing over because as a personality, I just need everything to be perfect. So every time I thought about the podcast, I would just add another mental note of another thing that I needed before I can start. And I would spend literally hours in bed just researching microphones on Amazon and listening to podcasts about how to create great podcasts. And in my mind, feeling like I have to draft so many different episodes and I have to have it all figured out and I have to batch loads of episodes in advance, was doing all of this for months, still no podcast. And the whole time, this voice in my head kept saying to me, you need to figure all of this out first. You need to be more prepared. What if you get it wrong? What if people judge you? What if you sound stupid? You have to launch when you are 100% ready. But the truth is, I was never going to be 100% ready, not from all that planning. And my breakthrough actually came when I was listening to a podcast by one of my mentors, and she was recording the podcast episode while I think walking on the beach. And the audio wasn't perfect at all. There were some points where like you could barely hear her. You could hear the wind and the waves more than you could hear her. But you know what? That didn't bother me because the way she was talking and what she was saying was so meaningful and valuable that I just enjoyed that podcast episode regardless. And that's when I realized I should just start. If she doesn't give a shit, sorry, pardon my French, if she doesn't give a shit about the audio because she knows how valuable what she has to say is, why shouldn't I think the same? So I just asked myself, what would happen if I just put out something messy right now? Something that's not super perfect, that's not super polished, but something that's real, right? And that scared me, but I also felt freed in that moment. So I recorded that first podcast episode on the same day. I used the equipment that I already had at home, which is this like 30-pound microphone that I bought 2 years ago, which I wasn't even sure that it worked, but it did. And my audio wasn't professionally edited. My messaging wasn't fully refined. I didn't have 20 episodes planned out, but it was done. And I launched it a few days later. And you know what happened? From that single imperfect action, I actually landed a paid workshop. So a fellow coach that listened to my very first podcast episode hired me to give a workshop to her clients on that same topic that I talked about in that episode. And I got paid for that. So literally from taking imperfect action, I got rewarded. And that's what always happens. So what that moment actually showed me was that execution, even if it's imperfect execution, beats perfect planning every single time, and you'll always be rewarded for that. So why does this happen? Why do intelligent, capable women get stuck in overthinking and perfectionism? I find that there are three hidden patterns at play here. So the first one is, as high achieving women, most of us built our identity around being thorough, detailed, and getting things right. So this served us really well in school, in university, and early in our careers, where success came from careful preparation, following instructions, avoiding mistakes. But when you're creating something new, whether that's, in your business, whether you're changing something in your career, or you're aiming for a personal transformation, this identity actually becomes a liability. In these spaces of creating something new, success doesn't come from having the perfect plan. It comes from testing, iterating, reiterating, learning, and always adjusting and adapting. It comes from action and not from constant thinking and analysis. But, your high achiever identity says, if I just research more, plan more, prepare more, then I'll be ready. But the truth is, you don't become ready through planning. You become ready through doing. And that leads me to the second pattern, which is using perfectionism as kind of a self-defense mechanism. So what most people don't realize about perfectionism is that it's not really about high standards. It's more about protecting yourself. When you stay in planning mode, you never have to face potential failure. This hit hard, right? You never have to risk criticism. You never have to confront that gap between your vision and your current reality because you're just staying in preparation mode and you're staying in your current reality. You're not trying to bridge that gap. Perfectionism is your brain's clever way of keeping you safe from judgment, rejection, and the discomfort of not being instantly amazing at something new. And I see this with my clients all of the time. One client with a corporate job spent 3 months preparing to launch her side business. And every week she'd tell me she just needed to refine one more thing before going live, before launching that business. And I got to a point where I told her, okay, we have to dig deeper at what's happening here because let's be honest, you were already ready months ago. And when we dug deeper, we found out that what was really happening was, as long as her business stayed something theoretical in her mind, she never had to risk it failing. And the moment she realized this, and we did the identity work and the rewiring to frame it not as failure, but as taking the first step towards success, it all shifted for her. She launched a business the next week and signed her first 2 clients in the first month. Okay, let's talk about the third pattern. So the third pattern that is keeping ambitious women stuck is the belief that you need to feel completely clear and confident before you take action. Now, of course, I do think clarity is super, super important for knowing what you want from life. I do this with all of my clients. I always get them to get super, super clear and detailed on that next level version of themselves, who they want to be, what they want it to look like. But after you do that initial work and after you get clear, I don't want you to keep thinking and thinking and thinking about it. At that point, you know who that next level version of yourself is, but clarity on how to get there exactly doesn't come from eternal thinking. It comes from action. You don't think your way to clarity about every single step of how you're going to get there. You act your way there. Every time you take action, you get data. You learn what works and what doesn't. You find out what feels aligned to you and what doesn't feel aligned. And with each piece of data, your path becomes clearer. So now that you understand why you get caught in overthinking, let's talk about how to break free from that. I'm going to share a 3-part framework that has helped so many of my clients move from overthinking to execution. Step 1 is to implement the messy action rule. And this rule is very simple, but it's still very effective. Every single day, you have to take one action that feels messy, imperfect, or, slightly uncomfortable. It doesn't need to be massive action, doesn't need to be perfect. It is just messy, imperfect action in the direction of your goals. It could be so many different things, obviously, depending on your goals. So it could be sending that email draft that's sitting in your draft folder. Could be publishing that social media post that you've rewritten 7 times. Could be having that conversation that you've been rehearsing in your head with your boss. Maybe making a decision that you've been analyzing for weeks. The point isn't to do it perfectly. The point is just to do it, period. And I am telling you this, but obviously I am not perfect either. And as an ambitious, high achieving woman, I struggle with this a lot. And I have something that I want to say working, but honestly, I haven't been working on it. I have been thinking about it for ages. Something quite big that I want to add to my services, which will come later in the year. But you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I have been doing what I have told you here. I have been planning it for so long. I told my business mentors, my friends, everyone about this thing that I'm planning to build, which is going to be so massive for so many of you listening to the podcast, seeing my Instagram posts, something that is really, really helpful and valuable that allows more people to actually gain from what I have to coach you on without having to pay super high ticket, without having to be a one-on-one client. And that thing has been on my mind for ages. I cannot even tell you the amount of times that I have planned how it's going to work and then changed it all in my mind. Yeah. The amount of times that I brainstormed name ideas. But in reality, I haven't done one practical thing to start it. And this is actually what led me to recording this podcast episode today. Because today I decided that enough is enough and I am taking messy action. So what does it mean for me? So this thing that I want to create includes different trainings. So in my mind, I thought I had to have all of those trainings mapped out. And I thought I would just get really pretty one day and batch record loads of these trainings. And then I'll just have that thing set up instantly. And you know what? That is very difficult to do. So what I decided today is I am just going to record one training. It can be 15, 20 minutes. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be perfect. But that is a start, right? That's the first step. Doing the first step is always the hardest. Once I do that, that's not so bad. I might just record another short training tomorrow. And you know what? Yeah, it might not be as quote unquote efficient as batch recording everything in one day. But this way, it'll likely just get done faster because it's very difficult to get to a point where it's all done perfectly in one day, right? Now, the thing about the messy action rule isn't just the external result that it creates. It's also in how it rewires your identity. Every time you choose action, messy action, over overthinking and planning, you are basically telling yourself that you are a person who executes. You are a person who moves forward despite imperfection. And over time, this becomes your new default state. And you know what? This is what successful people do. Speak to any successful business person, entrepreneur. They will tell you that they weren't ready when they launched the business or that project or whatever. They were not ready and they did not do it perfectly, but they did it. They started. even if it wasn't perfect. And that's why they are where they are today. So this was the first step. Now, the second step in breaking the overthinking cycle is to stop operating from your current identity. The one that overthinks and the one that is looking for the perfect plan, and start operating from your future self, the version of you who already has what you want. And here's how to do that. Every day, I want you to ask yourself, what would the version of me who already has what I want do today? How would she make decisions? How would she approach this challenge? Then act accordingly. Your future self isn't waiting for perfect plans. She is taking aligned action daily. She's making decisions quickly. She's moving with certainty. I had this one client, Rebecca, shout out Rebecca. She's fine with me telling the story, who before she started working with me, she was stuck in analysis paralysis around her fitness goals. So she kept researching the perfect program, the most optimal nutrition strategy, the perfect supplements that she should take to support her fitness journey. And meanwhile, months passed with no actual change in her habits. We then started working together, and I asked her, as I do with all of my clients, how would the fit, energetic, confident version of you, the one who already has the body and the health that you want, how would she approach today? And her answer was pretty immediate. She said that that woman wouldn't be overthinking this. She would be showing up at the gym at 6 a.m. She would be prioritizing protein with every meal. And she would be trusting that consistency matters more than finding the perfect plan or being perfect. And that shift from future tense to present tense thinking changed it all for her. She stopped looking for the perfect program and simply started embodying the habits of her future self daily. And 6 months later, she'd completely transformed her body, her energy, her confidence. And, that wasn't through finding the perfect plan and taking the perfect supplements. It was through consistent, aligned action that she visualized her future self taking. And the final step in breaking the overthinking cycle is to put the right accountability structures in place. And let me be clear about this one. Most forms of accountability don't work for overachieving women. And let me be clear about this. Most forms of accountability don't work for high achieving women because they get caught in perfectionism. So being told to just do it or having someone check in on your to-do list won't address the root causes that we just discussed. You need aligned accountability. And that is accountability that addresses both the practical action steps, but also the identity level shifts that are required for this real change. And this includes someone who calls you out on perfectionism when you can't see it yourself. Often, you don't even realize you're overthinking because it feels like being thorough or doing research or just being planned, right? So you need someone calling you out on this BS, frankly. You also need regular reflection on identity, not just actions. The right accountability asks not just kind of what did you do today or what's on the agenda, but also who are you being today? How are you showing up today? And the right accountability also celebrates messy action, not just perfect results. And this reinforces this new identity that we're building. And this is why my coaching is so powerful and why I see such success with ambitious women. I don't just check in on them, to see whether they did what's on their to-do list. I am checking if they have been doing the embodiment work, if they are showing up today as that person that they are aiming to be. And I also promote messy action. No need to be perfect, just start. Just bloody do it. That's the power of aligned accountability. It pushes you past overthinking into the execution that actually brings both results and clarity to your life. So let's pull this all together. The path from overthinking to execution is not about pushing yourself and forcing yourself to just do it, right? It's about recognizing the hidden patterns that are keeping you stuck. And that's your high achiever identity. That's using perfectionism as a self-defense mechanism, defense from failure. And the clarity misconception, thinking that you have to be super clear on every single step. And then we talked about implementing the 3-step framework. We have the messy action rule, 1 imperfect action daily. We have shifting from future self to present tense, operating as if you are already that version of yourself. and creating aligned accountability. Create support structures around you that address both actions and identity. And when you apply this framework consistently, what will happen is taking action will become your default state. Overthinking will just lose its grip, and you will start seeing real progress towards your goals, not just perfect plans that never materialize. And what I want you to remember is this: the women who achieve extraordinary things in life aren't the ones with perfect plans. They're the ones who execute consistently, learn from real world feedback, and adjust as they go. They don't wait until they feel ready. They act their way into readiness, and that's why they succeed. So, if you're ready to break free from overthinking and step into consistent, aligned action, I want you to know I'm working on something super special that I will be revealing soon. Yes, I'm finally working on that because we are taking messy action. I am developing a really powerful new way for ambitious women to get the exact support, accountability, and community that they need to make these identity shifts stick. Not just for a few days, but really as a permanent upgrade to how you operate in life. So imagine having a space where you're surrounded by other ambitious women who are done with playing small, where every month you focus on a specific identity shift with concrete challenges and aligned accountability, where overthinking is called out, messy action is promoted and celebrated, and transformation really becomes inevitable as a result. And that's what I am creating right now as we speak. If you want to be the first to know when I reveal all the details, head to my Instagram page, that's at coach.shiri, and DM me the word align. And that way I'll add you to the waitlist. And in the coming weeks, I'll be sharing more about this opportunity and how you can be part of the founding group. And if you found value in today's episode, please share it with another ambitious woman in your life who might be caught in her own overthinking cycle. Sometimes all it takes is one conversation, one podcast episode to really spark a breakthrough. So I will see you in the next episode, and remember that messy action beats perfect planning every single time.